Thank you very much for joining us. I don't know where you are, so it could be good morning, good afternoon, good evening. But this is our first attempt of speaking to authors, potential authors, our long-term supporter, reviewer, and other tourism researchers or researchers who are doing tourism research but not working within a tourism discipline, but you're all welcome here. So this is our first in a series of our webinar that we will try to arrange on a monthly basis. And this topic, how to respond to reviewer comments. Once I send out the poster, a lot of people say, yes, that's exactly what we need to know. And I was like, yay. So we picked the right topic for the first webinar. And I'm very, very happy to have three very experienced researcher authors here with us today as panelists. I won't be speaking very much. I will rely on the three of you, Professor Adil Lakin from Bournemouth University in the UK, and Dr. Juan Luis Nicolau from Virginia Tech in the USA, getting up early, going to work early this morning, and Dr. Mimi Chang from Curtin University in Australia. So really we have the different continents represented here. So if I can just ask each one of you to make an opening, remark very briefly, maybe 3 minutes, and then I will ask you some questions. And afterwards, I'm sure the audience here will have lots of questions to ask as well. So Juan Luis, would you like to start?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So hello, everyone. Thank you for the invite. And really, it's a really pleasure to be here. And I'm going for this just first introductory minute, and I'm going just to talk about not just operational issues, but something that can be kind of an strategic issue, but still a major issue, which is the attitude with which authors tackle the reviews. And this is something really relevant. And let's have a look at the big picture here. What's the purpose of a review? The purpose is to improve the quality of a paper. And we are going to improve that quality regardless of whether the paper ends up being published in that journal or not, because we are able to incorporate that feedback. What's more, that feedback is provided for free. So that's an advantage. It's something that we should make the most out of it. Obviously, one question here is this system flawless? No, not at all. Quite the contrary, actually. But still, this is let's say this way. This is the least worst process that we have. So it is subjective. The reviewers are conditioned by their preferences, their personal interest, their prior knowledge on the topic they are dealing with. They are conditioned by the mood, the emotions when they are writing, they are conducting the review. So obviously, the whole review process is filled in subjectivity. But if one wants to participate in this game, these are the rules. And one has to assume that these are the rules of the game. What I mean by that is that if you're in academia, it means that you're passionate about conducting research, about discovering new things. So if you want to take part in this game, you have to assume that these are the rules of the game and that subjectivity is a central part of this game. So in some respects, conducting the review and research in general is kind of an adventure. So if we love what we do, we should undertake the responses to reviewer comments with, I'm circling back to my initial remark, the attitude. We should embark on this adventure with excitement, with enthusiasm, because no matter how hard the comments are, it's part of our job. So we have to look at it, as I said, as an adventure related to discoveries. So that's beyond exhilarating. Just to wrap up, when addressing the reviewer's comments, key elements that should guide the responses are respect towards the reviewers, gratitude as well, thoroughness, attention to detail, and remember, in line with what I just said, always, always, always do it with eagerness, excitement, enthusiasm, because the attitude matters. The attitude certainly matters.
All right, thank you. Great to hear that. I can certainly feel the excitement every time I see a paper from you and the revision. After publishing so many papers, you're still very excited, and that's tough to maintain. So, okay, Professor Lakin.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for inviting us, and it's a pleasure to see so many nice smiling faces and so many colleagues. I will keep it brief because I know you've got some questions that you want to answer. So I think for my opening gambit, it's a reminder that if you are faced with reviewers' comments, it's a reminder that you've done really well, because that means that you haven't got desk rejected, you haven't got reviewers that have rejected your paper. You've actually got an opportunity to improve, as John Lewis has just said. So very briefly, I think it's worth bearing in mind, you've actually done really well if you've got reviewers' comments to respond to. So, give yourself a big pat on the back, because when we think of the high rejection rates now, that will only get worse and worse, I'm sure, you've actually done really well. So if you can enter into the spirit of before tackling your reviews, just remember, actually you did pretty well to get there.
Great point, great point. You're probably already the top 20% if you get a chance to revise. Dr. Chang.
Thank you very much for opportunities to share some of the experience in response to reviewers. So I think one thing that I will highlight is that we as authors, editors, and reviewers, we are all humans, right? You want to make our job easier. So we respond to comments. I agree with the other panelists that we need to be professional, respectful, but also try to remember you want to make review the job easier. Now, all the journals find difficult to find reviewers. Review voluntarily spend their time looking at the manuscript, start from beginning until the end. So I think one thing you remember, so when you respond to comments, just make sure you respond straight to the point. You want reviewer understand your points and then make it clear, and also respond in a way that's professionally, and also make it easier for the reviewers. Because once the reviewers are comfortable with your revisions, and you are one step further to reach your goal. So my take is that we are all humans. Make everyone's life easier.
All right, great. And I've seen some very good examples of responses, and I've seen some not so good examples, but I won't talk about them now because I wanted to ask you some questions. So you are all very experienced authors, and I'm sure you go through many of the scenario where you waited and waited and waited, and then you got your responses back, and the editors asked you to make revision, and you see 5 pages of comments that just torn apart your hard work over the past year and a half. How do you react, and what do you do first? Any of you, 3 of you, jump in, please.
Can I just jump in? So sure. I think we all need to acknowledge that we want feedbacks, we want to improve our papers, right? And we really sometimes get a very harsh comments. But remember, you get an opportunity to revise. You get an opportunity to convince the reviewers that you're doing the best work. I think the first thing is that you just say, well, you can talk to yourself and say, I disagree, but then come down, right? Because you need to respond to reviewers in a respectful voice and finally convince them that you are doing the best research. And also one thing I would also highlight is that, you have 5-page comments, but perhaps only a few of them are really significant that require significant efforts. So that's where you can actually, break through. So I think it's important to highlight, that what kind of comments that require significant effort, that you have to spend all your time to, you revise it and respond to it. Sometimes the reviewers say you have typo here, typo there, easy to fix, right? So that's what I feel like, come down a bit, disagree, yes. But then to highlight areas that you want to spend the most effort in revising it.
Yeah, good idea to go to separate the easy one from the ones that you need to spend time on.
Yes.
Actually, in that line, when we receive the reviewer comments, it's good to look at them from above, looking at the big picture, trying to find elements that are connected among them, because that will help us work more efficiently. We will try to find synergies when responding to the reviewers. And to get that, first, we have to have a good grasp of the general review. What's more, sometimes it can be appalling at the beginning, just seeing 5 pages in a review. It's good to give yourself some time to digest and to absorb all the feedback that the reviewers are providing, because that, again, that will help you address the comments more effectively.
Okay, great.
I was absolutely going to say that for me, it's always giving yourself time to digest it, because usually what happens is the email comes in and you've waited and waited and you're desperate to see what it says. And then you've got this long list of comments. And if they're not great and you realize you've got a lot of work to do, that normally sends you into a tailspin. And so I always do a sort of skim read, and then I think, right, I'll come back to this when I've got time to reflect on it properly. And I will spend time doing that. And that's likely to be, 1 or 2 days later, because then you can start to maybe see how you can tackle this. And some things, as I said before, some things are really easy, you can do them quick. And then there's always a bigger picture, and there's maybe connectivity between some of those responses. But yeah, don't try and do it instantly. Always have some time to think about it. And then if you're a little bit cross or a little bit upset or a little bit concerned, as is normal when you get reviewers' comments, you've kind of got over that by the time you get around to addressing it.
Yeah, at the beginning, we all tend to be quite emotional, isn't it? Our work has been attacked, so try not to do anything at that moment, right?
Don't take it personally. I should always say that. Don't take it personally.
Can I also jump in one thing? Sometimes you read the comments, the review seems very harsh, but they actually want you to improve the paper, right? They say, look, I want you to have good revision, but you say, oh, this is really harsh. You could emotionally say, oh, not good review, but actually, this review want to help you to get through. But sometimes you get reviewers may write very nicely, but they actually require you say, look, a lot of effort you put into it, but they write in a very nice way. So I think do not always take it at face values, and really consider how much effort you need to put into. And then, that's my thoughts when I receive the comments.
Yeah, and I really agree with the earlier comments you make, that you've gone this far. So if the editor allows you, give you a chance to make a revision, that means the editor sees potential in this work. So yeah, definitely give yourself a pat on the back, and then slip on it, and then move on. And I think you have slightly touched on the next question is, where do you start? Easy one, tough one. How would you suggest we break down the huge task of revision?
I always start with a table. So I do a table, and that's a cut and paste from the comments, and I split them into individual ones. And it sounds a bit tedious and boring, but it's slightly therapeutic to put everything together in a table. And of course, you do actually read it properly when you're doing that. So you end up with your big table with the comment and how you're going to respond to it. And that helps me to think about ordering these. And some are, and I, depending on what mood I'm in, probably do the easy bits first, and then give myself a little bit of time to come back to it properly. But for me, it's that process of putting the comments in one table helps me to digest them as well. So that's where I would usually start.
Okay, all right. Juan Luis?
Yes, definitely. Actually, the organization here is key as well. So when you put everything together, be it in a table, be it in a list, in a numbered list of comments, you are already picturing yourself writing the responses. And when you are doing that exercise, you are actually determining which one are the easy, which one are the more complex, and you will decide which one. But again, when we look at all the review comments from the big picture, from above, we will see, okay, at first I have to do this one, later this one, and regardless of how complex they are, if you find the synergies, it will come automatically, one after the other. It's true that starting with the easy one, it's self-motivating, definitely. The only thing is that sometimes that one is conditioned to the implementation of a previous one that requires some work. But anyway, you are picturing that one is easy. Once you get the first one, you will get the latter. So it's a thing of thinking strategically.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I would say that's put them point by point. And sometimes the reviewer may give you a paragraph, but it contains like 10 points. I think sometimes we will see we put it into 1 point, but actually you can bring it into a very small point. And see, agree with the other 2 panelists is that, you can tackle the ones that you feel the most comfortable with and the easiest, because once you see you're making progress, and then you say, oh, look, the most difficult one, I can do it as well. I think that from my perspective, I always break them into point by point, and then take the easiest first, and then go to the most challenging ones. I think it's kind of build your confidence around the way.
Yeah, I think there's a consensus here. I do the easy one first as well. So I feel like, oh, I'm halfway through, I'm 2/3 done, but leaving the more difficult ones to do the last. A lot of people are interested in knowing, actually, I just got an email a couple of weeks ago saying, what do I do if I don't agree with all the comments provided by the reviewers? So I have to agree with them? What can I do if I don't agree? Juan Luis, you want to go first?
Of course, yes. And it's perfectly okay to disagree with the reviewer. That's normal. No problem on that. With respect, try to provide arguments and try to provide empirical evidence to show that your viewpoint is also valid. What's more, here we have to look at it carefully, because is the concern provided by the reviewer a valid concern? Or maybe some misunderstanding or something that we didn't explain correctly? Is something that is a subjective comment open to interpretation? So before just, I don't agree with that comment. Okay, let's see what's the reason. Is a misunderstanding, something that I didn't explain correctly, or just two valid opinions? If that's the case, okay, let's provide some rationale on the decisions that we are going to make. Because maybe the reviewer's point is valid, but ours may be valid as well, as long as we provide that rationale supported by empirical evidence. So in general, yes, it's okay to disagree and to politely explain our perspective and reasoning and what lies behind our approach. Always, as I said, providing evidence and rationale for our choices.
Great. That's a Jane?
Yeah. So I think it's I agree with that we don't need necessarily to agree with the reviewers. But one thing I think we need to bear in mind is that reviewers spend time reviewing papers, and when you treat it, you treat it with respect. So if you disagree, then you need to outline the reasons why you disagree. And is it because you haven't written that well, or is it because something you think the reviewer has misinterpreted? But one thing I want to highlight, just giving an example, is that, for example, the reviewer was suggesting that, look, the other theory will be better for your research, and your theory probably cannot explain everything. But what you're trying to argue is saying that, oh, my theory can explain it, but why you didn't look into the other theory the reviewer proposed, and then you didn't provide saying, provide evidence saying that, well, actually I have looked into other theory, but if I compare both theories and there's evidence, my theory will be better. So I think you need to acknowledge what the reviewer has suggested to you, say you have done the work, and then after you taking the consideration of the review comments, you say, I'm sorry, but with respect, I disagree with your comments. I think emotionally, the reviewer is more likely to accept your argument. So that's my take.
Okay, great. Adele?
Yes, I think they're really good points, and I would just add that if you do disagree and demonstrate why, then try and do it politely and try and not get emotional about it, because I think sometimes that's a little bit challenging if you respond and it's evident that you're kind of annoyed with the reviewers, because as the starting point, it is something that we have to go through, and so do it as best as you can to defend your own perspective.
Yeah.
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 Can I add one point is that sometimes the reviewer may suggest you do further research, add more control variables, and then you say, look, I can't do that because it's practically impossible. The data I got is 2 years ago, and now I can't get it back data again. So I think you need to explain the reasons that you can't do it, and you disagree. You say, I can't take that advice with this, but they say, but I provide another alternatives as to what we have done, right? Even though I disagree that we need to get data other control variables, but this is what I have done so far, that practically, possibly. And the other thing I also take is that sometimes we receive contradictory comments from different reviewers, right? One reviewer suggests this point A, the other reviewer say another directions. And sometimes you need to think through, right, which direction you're going to take, because each directions will make huge differences to your paper. And you satisfy one reviewer may not satisfy another reviewers. I think one more thing, I did it before, and thankfully, sometimes I say, look, I don't know what direction I should take. I write to the editors and say, look, I'm in situation, I'm happy to take either direction, and they are really good, but I don't know what should I do. I mean, one thing I feel like the editor will say, look, we make the final decisions, and then you need to provide as much evidence as possible where you want to, take. I think that's, what I learned from my my experience.
Okay, thank you. I think there are a lot of good points. You have to explain clearly. They suggest something that you disagree. Maybe it's because they didn't really understand what you're saying. So when we work on the paper for so long, we understand it, but other people have different perspective. They read it for the first time, they may not get it. So we see a lot of defensive comments like, it's right there, it's clear, I said it. How come the reviewer say I didn't say it? So it must be he or she didn't read the paper. No, that's not the case. Whenever they say something, that means something is not clear. So we need to go back and see how can we do a better job of explaining or communication. And Ming raised a good point about reviewers disagreeing or suggesting different things. Which one should we take? Actually, again, it's up to the authors which one you think you can make a better argument and which one can help you enhance the paper, enhance the study better. When we send out the papers out for the second round review, usually, I don't know about if all other journals handle the same way, but for tourism management, all the reviewers get to see the other reviewers' comment and the author's responses to all the reviewers' comments. So if you disagree with what I say, but it's because the other reviewer gave you a completely different suggestion and you agree with that suggestion and you tell me why you disagree with my suggestion, and that is perfectly okay, because the reviewers get to see each other's comments and then they get a chance to say, oh, okay, I didn't think about that, and that sounds good, right? So it's perfectly okay to provide additional information. And that comes to the next question. What is the best way to prepare a response to the reviewer comments? Earlier, you mentioned about having a table and then be polite. Are there any particular ways that you think will increase the success rate or will make the reviewers happy?
I can start with. I think I think editors are busy, reviewers are busy too. And one thing, if you love your papers and you have the opportunity to revise, I would say save their times, make the life easier when they go through how you respond to the comments. So provide very directly to question and comments. So do not go around and around. So you just need to go, answer directly to the questions. And also when you answer questions, and also you outline what you have changed, what have you done. Like you say, well, at the one sections on the literature review on particular topic, and then you say, look, where you can find it in the manuscript. And usually we can use different colors to highlight what you have done. I think it's easier for the reviewers to understand how you respond to comments, what you have done, what exactly we can find in the manuscript. So just so make it easier for the reviewers. And also, I think one thing when you go through when you write a response, just acknowledge the efforts of the reviewers, because you, as we talked about earlier, you can disagree, but acknowledge the effort they put into. You say, I have considered that. I think that's what I think.
Okay, right. Thanks. Juan Luis?
Yes, essentially, this is kind of a common sense. First, let's be clear, let's be organized, and make others' life easy, and make this job easy for the reviewers and the editors. So it implies make it easy for them to find the changes you have made, either by indicating in the responses to reviewers the location or highlighting the changes in the manuscript. Acknowledge the job that the reviewers are doing. Thank them about that. Because remember, as I said at the beginning, they are doing this for free. Be polite, respectful, and always with a professional tone, because they are assessing our work. They are not assessing us as a person. So no need to provide defensive or confrontational language, nothing like that. Just be polite, respectful, and always with a professional tone. Make sure that you address all the comments, and even the smallest ones, because that gives the impression that you care about what they said. So all of this is relevant. And one final point, which is sometimes critical. Once that you have done all the job, replying to the reviewers, you read the whole paper, the whole responses once again, and edit the whole document. Again, you have invested a lot of time. So it is worthwhile just investing a few more minutes polishing the final document.
Excellent point. Very often we make changes section by section here and there, and then we forget about the flow to make sure that it's a complete story again from the beginning to the end. Yeah, good point. Adele?
Yeah, I think absolutely. That's what there's a tendency once you've finished everything to send it off again because you're so relieved you've done so. And it is worth taking some time to read your paper again, especially if it's been a major revision, because it will look quite different from the first version. And you know what everyone is hoping is that the paper will be improved. That's the supportive process. And of course, sometimes it isn't, because other things can make it then a different type of paper. So yes, I think that was really good advice, is to really make sure you forget the comments. Is this a good paper again in its revised form before you send it off?
Yeah. Okay. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
And another thing I found is just as a reviewer myself, when I review papers, I found tracking changes is so difficult to read. Because when you make track changes as you resubmission, and then as you order, the paragraph you have done before, and then the new changes, it looks a bit messy. So I would as a reviewer, I would not suggest use track changes, because it make a document look a bit messy and hard to see what you have done.
Yeah. Okay. We started 10 minutes late, but I understand Adele needs to be excused pretty soon. So any lessons learned, what not to do? Anything you would suggest the audience not to do?
Yeah, I would say don't respond too quickly, and don't, you know, if you are a bit hurt or those, don't let that show when you respond to your comments. So, you know, be considered and take some time to reflect. So that what not to do is don't show that you are annoyed or that you don't want to do that process or that it's breaking your heart to go through all those comments, because sometimes it does, you know, we know it does feel quite challenging.
Okay, thank you.
You know, one thing I learned is that a lot of times reviewers suggest that you do further analysis, you know, consider other factors. And as a reviewer, sometimes I get annoyed in saying, oh, I just simply, the author seems to say, are we going to put in the future research? But rather than consider the possibility they can revise in the manuscript. And I feel like the reviewer, I say, look, there's something you can possibly do, right? To run robust analysis, but you just say put a future as a further future research and say, you didn't really take my comments seriously. I think it can alarm people. And also the other thing is that just acknowledge, as a human, we all make mistakes. If a reviewer point out you have done something wrong, just acknowledge it, right? And then say how I fix it. Because trying to defend something that you're not right, I think probably is pointless. I think just acknowledge it and how you fix it. And last thing I want to add is that you know, a lot of editors and reviewers are nice people. They want to get your paper through. They don't want to reject your paper if they give you a chance. So don't think the reviewers are harsh, but a lot of them are nice people. They want to get your paper through. That's the one you consider comments seriously and improve the paper.
Yeah, good point. Don't put everything into future research, right? Juan Luis.
Okay, so I started with an attitudinal tip. I'm going to finish with another attitudinal tip. And regarding what not to do, never become discouraged, never get dispirited. I always tell my students, my PhD students, this anecdote of what I call a blessed desk rejection. It was a paper of mine that was desk rejected in one of the top tourism and hospitality journals. Obviously, I'm not going to say which one, but it ended up being published in one of the top general management journals, which is quite something. So I would have never published in that top journal in management if I didn't have been rejected, if I hadn't been rejected in this HTM top journal. So never lose faith. Having acceptances and rejections is an inherent part of our job, of our wonderful job, to put that way.
Yeah, good point. I mean, the top journals now basically have less than 10% acceptance rate, 8%-ish. So really, we all have been rejected many times before, and it's just part of the job. We do have a question in the chat box. I'm not sure who will be in the best position to answer. The reviewer suggested to include some control variables. Then should the author collect new data for that? I guess it depends on the experimental. I assume it's an experimental design. I guess it depends on the research design and whether you agree with that. Mimi, you have any comments?
You know, what I thought is that you think practically, is it possible? For example, if they ask you to collect additional data, for example, they say, look, you know, your social media data were collecting 1 years ago, but now the platform had changed the policy. You wouldn't be able to get the same amount of data. And then practically it's impossible for you to do it. But then you need to provide alternative, right? So I can't collect the data, but this is what I can do in the best scenario, best scenario. But if you the other, you know, put some control variables or may do another experiment, that's practically possible, right? And then you may consider to take that advice, because I feel like reviewers will also appreciate how much effort you actually put into the process, and I think that will help you to get a you know, better chance.
Okay, Juan Luis, do you have any experience on that?
just determine whether it's really relevant. And if it's relevant, look at the feasibility of getting that additional data. That will be my piece of advice here.
Yeah. I've handled the paper a few months back. The authors did go out to collect additional data. It was feasible simply because they did online surveys and they just asked the same panel to distribute additional survey, adding additional variable and run another analysis. So for that's feasible. That certainly helped that paper went through. So yeah, depending on the situation, right? Well, I'm conscious of the time. If you have any urgent question or question you definitely want to ask, you can type it in the chat box. Otherwise, I think this has been very helpful, and we just want to make this initial communication channels through Zoom webinar with the authors, and I will send out announcement again about our next month's webinar. Probably will pick a different topic. And I also would like you to know that every first Monday of the month at the same time, I will be here. I will make that my TM office hours. So I will be here once a month, first Monday, and I will send it out as well. So if any of you would like to have I'm not sure if it's a one-on-one or one-on-many consultation or just want to chat, and many of you know me, just want to say hi, that's fine as well. Just like your teacher's office hour, you're welcome to stop by. So just to let you know that every month, first Monday, I'll be here. So I don't see, I have one question. I'm doing qualitative research, not easy to get publication. What do you think? Adele, that's your expertise. What do you think about qualitative research?
Well, as you know, Kathy, I'm a big fan of qualitative research, and certainly on one level, yes, it does look like it's hard to get it published. However, qualitative research has its own sets of guidelines and criteria and things that you need to adhere to, and a good piece of qualitative research stands as much chance as being published as quantitative research. So I would say don't give up, and I would say make sure that methodologically you are doing the right things. So, what can you do to improve it? We do know qualitative research can often be very slow, and I think this is one of the challenges. Sometimes it's a very long process, and you will know that if you've done qualitative-based doctoral studies. It can be challenging, but you need to pick the right journal, and you need to make sure that methodologically you are rigorous in exactly the same way that you would for a quantitative piece. But I do feel the pain. I understand that, but it's not to say qualitative research is undervalued.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Yeah. I mean, tourism management definitely welcomes qualitative research that is well conducted. So there is a protocol that you have to go through. You have to demonstrate the rigor of the research and trustworthiness of the results. And if you can tell a good story and obtaining data from multiple sources, we always talk about multiple sources of data. Same for qualitative research. As long as you can demonstrate that, I don't think reviewer will have any issue, right? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank our panelists. 3 of you did an excellent job to kick off the first series. We are recording this, and we will post it on our YouTube channel. Again, we will have a tourism management YouTube channel. Hopefully, if you're interested, that you can subscribe, and we'll upload video to the channel on a regular basis as well. So again, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you Ming, Adele, and Juan Luis for joining us.
You're welcome.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye. Have a good day.